I'm curious. Have you ever found yourself as an adult throwing in a tantrum to your young children? Like, you left the grocery store and your kids were rotten and you're in the parking lot throwing a complete fit. And then you make it home and you're like, I literally just had a tantrum because my children tantrumed. And I'm trying to teach my children not to tantrum, and this is just so confusing. Or have you had a situation where someone invited you to a party and you quickly deflected and said, oh, we have a soccer game that night, and then you get home and you're like, we have no soccer game. Like, why am I avoiding going to this party? And why was I so quick to dismiss myself with a quick half truth instead of just saying, wow, that feels really overwhelming to me. I don't know if I'm gonna make it, but I love you. Could we go out to lunch sometime? Or like, why do we tell these half truths? In this vlog, I'm gonna expose and experience some of these feelings and also talk about the process of repair. Hi, I'm Cami. I share my experiences and my story as I've navigated chronic illness and chronic pain for the last 10 years. And just as an invitation, like, hopefully you can feel something inside my story that will resonate with yours, because I truly believe as we get into our stories, then we can help connect to our bodies again, and they can truly be restored and healed. This isn't a vlog about apology or forgiveness or anything like that. This is about how can we feel what's actually happening inside of our body when we deflect things so quickly, or when we feel so like we're having such a strong out-of-body experience, like the first example that I shared. I started blogging a couple years ago, but my part-time mom job really is, I'm a private swim instructor, and I teach kids ages 6 months to 12 years old how to swim. And I had an experience, and I wanted to share a specific story about how I reacted in this experience and how I met myself, and in so the process of repair. I have linked a blog post below where I define what repair actually is and how it's possible to go back and fix something that we may have made a mistake in the past, or maybe we weren't met kindly in some situation in our life, and we can go back and repair with ourselves. That's kind of the common thing that I wanted to approach in this specific vlog. All right, so I teach swim. I've taught for 13 years, and 5 years ago I started teaching at a private pool in my neighborhood. I bought 3 wetsuits that were $40 each at the time, and just paid with it out of my earnings that I got from swim lessons, because I knew that these wetsuits for littles, some of the littles, like worked wonders to help them floating or doing backstrokes on their back if they needed the support, if they were too skinny, or if they had a really tight waist. The wetsuit just gives like an added amount of buoyancy, and it helps the child float a little bit, and then it helps the body learn and retrain and start building this sense of trust that their body actually can float. And it's just this beautiful process that happens as we use this tool of a wetsuit. So I purchased 3 of these, and now we're 5 years into our swim school at this specific pool that I'm working at now. And my small swimsuit started tearing, and it just kind of started falling apart. So I messaged my boss, and I asked her if she would like to buy a new small swimsuit, and I explained that I made an initial investment because I enjoyed those wetsuits so much, and I left them at the pool so all the swim instructors could use them. But I was wondering if she would want to purchase the next one since we needed a replacement. And she agreed, and I purchased it and sent her the receipt and took the wetsuit to the pool. Not only a week later, after this brand new wetsuit arrived, I was talking to a mom that was taking her little boy, he's 3, to a private pool for spring break. And he was doing phenomenally well in this wetsuit. It was helping him swim really straight and float on his back really well. And I just suggested, I said, if you're going to be in the pool that much this week, I would really suggest that you take a wetsuit so he continues to be trained in the way I'm training him here. And then I offered the one that was at the pool that my boss had just bought. It was, usually I can offer mine up because I'm the one that purchased them. And so as I'm thinking about it, and offering it to her, and I'm just like being kind, generous, and want the best success for my student, I'm realizing that I'm trying to loan out a wetsuit that I don't own. And I sent the wetsuit with the mom anyway for their spring break vacation. And just kind of justified that I was being a good swim instructor and I want the best for my swim student. And it was a couple days later, at the end of that spring break week, that my boss texted all the swim instructors and asked, has anybody seen that new pink wetsuit that we just bought? I've been cleaning the pool house this week while it's been empty and I can't seem to find it. And immediately I went and had this little pounding on my heart. And I just hurried and text back and I said, I have it. I'll bring it back to you next week. And just to give her the peace of mind, I know where it's at. And it was just a quick escape and white lie and oopsies. I knew it wasn't mine and I loaned it out anyway, and then I didn't tell her. And there's just so many tiny examples in this story that I want to explain. And I want to also explain how I felt in my heart, just this feeling of shame that I just half told the truth to her. I told a half truth that I had it, which I didn't. I had sent it to California with my swim student. I also had this feeling of how you didn't even need it this week. Why are you looking for it? And a little bit of defensiveness. And then also this feeling of shame, oh, I didn't ask permission, and I am working on boundaries, which I had crossed a boundary of giving away something that wasn't mine. And so I just kind of sat with all these feelings, and it kept clicking through my head of how are you going to fix this? How are you going to mend it? How am I going to cover up my tracks if if the suit doesn't show up, or it just felt panicky in my chest. And so then I started to explore these feelings and this need to feel like I need to fix it or mend it or cover up my tracks. There's this felt sense of shame inside my chest that I was holding as I was experiencing this story, and I really I have been trying to fill into a felt sense for quite a while of what are these feelings that I'm having and how is it associated to something that is happening inside of my body. And as I was researching, this original word of felt sense was made more well known by Eugene Glenland, and he talked about felt sense being an aura of a feeling, and it encompasses a million words, but it's something that you just feel inside of you, and even tightness happens along the back of the neck in my specific felt sense of shame, and just kind of noticing how am I feeling in my body and what is actually happening? It's really interesting. As I was feeling into that feeling, I was like, oh, my son does this a lot. He's 9 years old, and he gets really uncomfortable in his body and just wants to deflect whatever he's feeling. And so then he'll just quickly tell like a quick lie of like, yeah, I cleaned that up, or like, no, I didn't hit my sister, whereas I'm like standing there watching it, and he it's such an overwhelming feeling and such an overwhelming expansive sensation in the body that he can't handle it. It gets easily overwhelmed and he just deflects it, just like I had deflected my boss's question. Yep, I have it. And so I was like, oh, this is the same feeling that he's feeling when he's deflecting my answers. So I started getting curious about what that was communicating to me, and what I needed to learn from it, to even connect to the inner parts of me that need love and attention and repair and healing. Remember, this blog is so much about repair and how I can encompass the feelings of shame that I was feeling, but also like, hey, there's a sense of safety here too, and you're gonna be okay. And how I should approach that in the process of repairing even within my own body as I'm feeling these things. The reason that it really was resonant and came up is because I felt it. I felt this feeling of shame in my chest. If we can expose and experience shame a little bit and more define it, it's this feeling of like, hey, there's nothing more I want than to be seen, and I may not be approved of, and you may not want me, so I don't really want to be seen. It's a very conflicted feeling, and it's a safety response to, what if you don't want me in my vulnerability, then I can do anything, adapt in some way, or fix something in some way, so then you'll want me. It's very complex, but to really understand shame, I think you really have to dive into a felt sense of it. As I started communicating with the younger parts of myself that I know had felt shame before and probably had felt this same emotion, then I started explaining, like, you have resources now. It's okay. You have enough money to go and buy another wetsuit if it doesn't show up. And you trust this parent that they'll return it. And it's going to work out okay, and you have safety. Can you regain and refine safety in your body? Is there somewhere safe in your body that doesn't feel threatened by you sneaking behind your boss's back and giving this away, right? And it wasn't necessarily sneaking, it was just like my good intention of giving it away. But like when you start feeling this heaviness in your shoulders and in your chest, it still feels like sneaking. And it's so interesting how the body interprets these things from something that's felt in the past. Then I started getting curious. Like, I started wondering and questioning, why do you actually feel this way? Like, why is something so simple bringing up defenses and these sensations that are really uncomfortable to you? And I started thinking about how in my childhood I had to resource myself a lot, and I had to figure out things by myself and alone. And so I was kind of going to back to that state of mind, like, please, boss, don't question me, just let me figure this out by myself. And she was not attacking me, she was just curious where the suit was. But my response was coming back with this fierce independent energy of just like, it's fine that I did this. This is all internal dialogue. I wasn't communicating with her. This is all me getting curious of where is this coming from? But I had to be resourced. Like, I had to resource myself a lot as a child and figure out how I was going to fix a situation on my own. And that does bring up defenses a lot of the time, because you orient with this idea of like, there's not a lot of other people that are going to figure this out, so I'm going to do it. And it brings quite a fierce front. I also didn't ever want to explain myself. Like, I didn't call her up and say like, oh, I sent the suit to California with this family and because of this reason, da 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 da. If I like feel into my heart of why I didn't want to explain myself, I think I just wanted it to pass and be done with. Kind of like how my son deflects answering my questions some of the time and just like, it's taken care of, right? And I just wanted it to be taken care of and go away. And so it's a deflection, I believe. Okay, so this is how I started to repair with myself, is saying, okay, what could I do differently next time? Or if I had this scenario again, what would I do? And number one, I just wouldn't give the suit away. Like, I wouldn't have offered it and I wouldn't have given it away. Pretty simple. I think that would just be a simple boundary of, hey, that's not mine and I won't give it away. Number two, if I caught myself in a conversation thinking, oh, I've actually loaned these suits out before because I've owned them, and then thinking, I probably would have stopped myself in the middle of the conversation and said, wait, I just remembered that my boss bought this and it's not mine to give out. I'm sorry, you can't take it. And I really apologize for if that was confusing for you, but I just remembered that she had bought this suit. And I think the people pleaser in me, when I caught myself giving it away and then realizing it wasn't mine, I think the people pleaser in me is like, no, just go forward with it. Whereas like the correct way would to be pull back my offer. The suit did return. It returned that week. I messaged the parent and asked them to bring it back to the pool so we could all use it that week. And it worked out fine. I never repaired with my boss with it or anything, but I really took this as an exercise with repairing with myself, that these feelings are real, and when they were trained is also real, and why. And that curiosity, I think, is just a really beautiful act of self-love to understand there are parts of our story that create the ways we react in specific scenarios, our jobs, with our children, in our interactions with the outside world. Like, there's reasons why, and we can go back to ourselves and say, wait, maybe we should do it different next time because we don't want to orient with that way of being anymore, or we want to learn boundaries and so we would like to do it differently next time. And we are kind, and we can tell the truth. That would have been a simple solution too, is, I'm sorry, I sent it with a family. I had totally forgotten that it wasn't my suit, just because we had just gotten the new one and I really wanted their child to succeed. I truly believe they'll bring it back next week. If they don't, then I'll buy a new one. I could have answered the text in that way, so simply, and never felt like that heaviness in my chest or the weight against the back of my neck and shoulders. And what a beautiful thing that would have been if I could have resourced myself in that way at that moment. But as I'm doing this exercise and telling you the story, I'm like, oh, I think in the future I could resource this internal safety and less tension in my body. And so I feel safe to tell the truth and to mend with those that I'm interacting with a little bit better. Especially if I'm not in a feeling stressed out or in a time crunch or those types of scenarios. We just really kind of revert in those stressful situations. It's normal human nature to revert back to how we were programmed and trained as younger children to handle scenarios that are a little bit more stressful. At the beginning of this vlog, I asked if there was a scenario where you had had a tantrum or had told a quick white lie or had like a scenario as an adult where you felt shame inside like you were a young child and you're like, what, where is this coming from? And you actually acknowledged your pattern and your behavior and stopped and questioned it. And I'm just curious, if you have held shame in your body, where would you say that shame, you would carry that shame? If you could take a deep breath and drop into your body. Like I've explained many times in this video, my shame was like kind of heavily carried here on my heart and on the back of my neck here, in like more of an attention tight way. And it's just interesting how the brain connects emotion to bodily sensation. And I think the more we can drop into that feeling, like it helps us connect with our bodies so much better. It also helps us then later find and resource safety. If we can't feel safe here, can I feel safe in my legs, my strong legs? Or if I can't feel safe here, can I feel safety in my gut because I know I did the right thing? Those are all just beautiful questions that this is more advanced in a healing journey. As we start to learn and ask these questions, it invites a lot of compassion and self-love, but also it helps renegotiate trauma that's been trained and stored from our earlier experiences.